As Molly Scott-Cato already mentioned, the Austrian government are taking the UK to court over the decision to go ahead with Hinkley. Last year, the European Commission, erroneously in the opinion of many experts, decided to allow Hinkley to go ahead. I've got here in my hand some postcards I'd like to hand out amongst you. These postcards are asking you to sign your name to support the action against the European Commission's decision. On the 24th of March, Ursula Sladek, a lot of people from Germany, a lot of people from the UK are going to go to Brussels to question the decision that's been made on state aid for Hinkley. And that decision is an important one across Europe because countries such as Romania, Slovenia, Slovakia, Poland and France are watching what happens here, because basically if it's allowed to go ahead, it gives a green light for more nuclear power stations across Europe. The European pressurised reactor, which is what they'd like to build at Hinkley, has run aground. In Finland, it's not going particularly well, and TVO and Areva are suing and counter-suing each other. In Flamanville in France, the build is also not going well and is behind time and over budget. And even in Taishan in China, a place where I thought it wouldn't run into many problems, they seem to be running into more problems there. And the Chinese aren't planning on building any more EPR reactors either. In America, the process they had over there for allowing a construction license for the EPR has now been suspended. Areva have asked them to suspend that process. So there's some small victories there that we should celebrate. At home, we face the task, a quite onerous task, of trying to raise awareness of what the nuclear industry is doing to what's left of our so-called democracy here in the UK. In case any of you haven't been watching, in the last 6 weeks in that building over there has been pushed through Parliament plans to build a nuclear dump. Now, it's not just any ordinary nuclear dump, this is a dump that's never been done before, and in my opinion never should be. Unfortunately, they've designated that dump as nationally significant infrastructure. What this means in plain language is that no longer will communities or even local authorities or county councils have any say in the location and conditions under which nuclear waste will be dumped in our communities. That decision is for the Secretary of State to make on our behalf. I find this absolutely shocking, given that we're living in the 21st century and this is supposed to be the heart of democracy. There's nothing democratic about the nuclear industry, and in fact, the nuclear industry can't operate in a free and fair democracy, which is why we should be very concerned about the erosion of our civil liberties in this country. People talk about the link between nuclear weapons and nuclear power, and I'd just like to elucidate that connection a little. Historically, it's been about plutonium and bombs, as previous speakers have mentioned. But in the modern 21st century, it's about depleted uranium and about maintaining an industrial base so that we can continue to build these weapons. So we should be under no mistake. It matters not whether we can take plutonium from the new generation of reactors, although I'm sure we could if we configured them correctly. The pro-nuclear industry feel threatened by what's gone on in the last few years with Fukushima. Fukushima has pushed up the costs of building new nuclear reactors. And so I watch with interest organisations like the Nuclear Energy Insider. And I read an article the other day from Stephen Kidd, who I think was for 17 years one of the editors of the World Nuclear News. Stephen Kidd thinks that we'll have many more Fukushimas. I hope not. He also thinks that the nuclear industry need to get a grip of control of the way that radiation protection is communicated. These are the people, as Molly alluded to earlier, that for the last 70 years have had tight control over the reigning models of scientific models that control over how we do health protection, or rather how we don't do health protection. And the other thing that they like to say is that the anti-nuclear movement shows the dangers of making decisions with our hearts and not our heads. Well, I would challenge us that it's about time we did make decisions with our hearts and not our heads, because decisions with our heads have brought us nuclear power and nuclear weapons. And as for emotional attachment, I think that the nuclear industry are very emotionally attached to this technology. This technology, they have no grip on reality. The reality is that these things aren't built without great government subsidies, and yet these are the people who claimed that they would be. And so I proudly say that I make decisions with my heart when it comes to nuclear power, because my head and my heart are aligned. My head knows that it's not logical and it's not sensible, and my heart knows how dangerous it is. I ask you now over the next 12 months, because next year will be 5 years since Fukushima began and 30 years since the Chernobyl crisis began. And I would ask you to make sure that we go into our communities and use social media to spread the word about Fukushima, because I feel like the UK at the moment is sleepwalking into nuclear disasters, civil rights disasters and human rights disasters, and it's only by being awake and talking to each other that we have any chance of heading those off. So thank you for coming and being here today and being part of and showing the people of London how awake we are about these issues. Thank you.